Welcome to Garden DC, the podcast about everything gardening in the Washington, D.C. and Mid-Atlantic region. I'm your host, Kathy Jentz. I'm the editor of Washington Gardener magazine, and we're aimed at gardening enthusiasts, people who grow everything from edibles to ornamentals, natives to exotics. If it grows in our area, that's what we talk about. This episode of Garden DC, we're joined by Louisa Zimmermann-Roberts of Thanksgiving Farms in Adamstown, Maryland. Welcome, Louisa.
Hi, it's good to be here today.
Great to have you. And Louisa is a houseplant and indoor plant, I'm going to say indoor jungle specialist. Her Thanksgiving farm has a wonderful selection of plants, and we'll dive into all of that in a few minutes. But first, we're going to talk about you, Louisa, and maybe some of your background of Thanksgiving Farm and all the different offerings there, aside from houseplants, before we dive into all things indoor gardening.
Okay. Well, my name is Louisa Zimmermann-Roberts. Our Thanksgiving farm started as a produce business. My mother was one of the first women to receive a business loan as a minority in the 70s, and that's why our name is called Thanksgiving Farms, because she was very, very thankful that she received the loan. We started about a mile away on one farm, and then we moved to the farm that we're currently on in 1979. We got into the greenhouse because we wanted to grow our own starter plants for out in the field, and really it just blossomed from there. Next thing you know, we put up one, we put up two, and now we have 40 greenhouses, and we're mostly a garden center now. We do still have our 57-acre produce farm where we have a CSA, which is a community supported agricultural. You can buy into it. It's a share. We actually just started our fall extension today. We have a summer, a fall, and then we have an extension of an extension, which is our winter. And a few years ago, because you can never have your eggs all in one basket, my husband wanted to start a brewery. We went back and forth for a few years because he was home with the kids on the weekends, and I would be giving up a clean house and home cooked meals. So we went back and forth for a while. And I allowed him to do a brewery. And if he was going to open up a brewery, it was going to be on the farm. And that took a few years. But I am happy to say we now have Mad Science Brewing at Thanksgiving Farms. And I am so proud of him. It's only open on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 5. And he has quite the turnout. I am very, very proud. So in one location, you have two businesses. You have Thanksgiving Farms, and then you have the brewery. And then on the weekends, we also bring in food trucks, which is always fun, and live music occasionally. We will have music Saturday and Sunday. You would just have to check our Facebook page. But we started in the produce business, and we did farmers markets 4 to 5 days a week. And that was a lot of work. Going back and forth. Most of our markets were in the DC area. I don't know if you are familiar with the RFK market, and yeah, that was our big one. We did that one for a long time until it actually got too dangerous to go. And then we did the ones in Baltimore, the bigger markets, until we wanted to reduce our carbon footprint and get our big trucks off of the roads. So that's why we started the CSA about, I want to say almost 10 years ago, and we now have over 200 members. So we're no longer doing farmers markets. Everything is strictly based out of our address here. It's just all here, which is the garden center where I grow all of our plants. I guess I should mention that in our greenhouses. And I don't use chemicals. I do use a fertilizer. And as you probably guessed by trying to set up this podcast, we are very, very old-fashioned here. Like my orders are still in a notebook. That is how old-fashioned. I'm actually using this computer for the very first time for this podcast. So thank you.
Well, we're going to drag you into the 21st century.
Oh, yeah. Regardless of how much a fight I put up.
But yeah, the important thing is those plants, and
Yes.
all we care about is those. So the technology behind them is lesser importance.
Yeah, we actually draw. I do it because I can grow the stuff here, and I do a lot of my own cuttings and a lot of propagation myself. That we have an eclectic array of plants. I like more the odd and unusual. So our clientele actually does draw from DC, Baltimore, and Northern Virginia. And it wasn't until the pandemic when like local cities and stuff were putting together these Facebook pages that people in Frederick even knew we were here. So now we like doubled our demographic these last 2 years. And so it's been a whirlwind of 2 years.
That's great. And for those who are outside the DC area, let's explain kind of where you're positioned. So you're north of DC, a little, is it to the west or south of Frederick, Maryland?
I'm not sure. I know you can take 270 or 28
Hmm.
up from DC. We're about an hour from DC, and you go towards Frederick, and then once in Frederick, you take the exit for Buckystown, the southern exit
Hmm.
for Route 85, or you can come up 28.
And the other thing that's in your neighborhood, so to speak, is Lily Pond's Water Gardens.
Oh,
So,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
if you're ever doing one, do the other, do both in one
Yeah.
trip.
Did you know our farm was the original lily ponds?
No, I didn't know
It
that.
was the original. It was called Three Springs Farms, and we actually have the original spring across the street where they worked out of. It was originally part of our farm. When my parents moved in, they bought the spring house across the street, and then a few years ago we bought the house. So now our farm is back into the original. But Agnes came through, I want to say in the late 70s, and destroyed all of the ponds on our farm, so they moved to their current location. Yeah, and we're just like 3 miles from Lily Ponds. So definitely, if you go there, you should come here too.
Yeah, and vice versa. Yeah, make it a whole day trip out there, and of course take advantage of the food trucks and the Mad Science Brewing to hang out a
Oh
little
yeah,
bit.
the weekends are always fun, and the food trucks in Mad Science is open all the way, and we're open all the way until December 24th. So
Oh, that's great to hear. And I was going to say that you have other family members that help you in the business, and I know you have a few kids that are looking to join the business. Do you want to talk about that for a little bit?
we can, like I said, we grew up on this farm. My parents, they moved to this farm in 1979, and I have two older sisters, which are my natural sisters, and then my parents adopted five Koreans. I have five Korean siblings, but they decided to take other courses in life, and we're very proud of them. Darby and I are pretty much the only ones. Darby is the oldest. And then there's Melanie, and then there's myself, and then Shannon, Susanna, Austin, and Trelawney, and Joshua passed away in infancy. But out of all of us, Darby and I are here every day. Melanie is not a full time employee, but she does still help out here. And the other kids, I call them kids because there's such an age difference between us. They went on to become awesome. One is stockbroker. One works as an air traffic controller up at JFK. The baby Trelawney is a doctor, and then one is a stay-at-home mom. So we're really proud of them too. But they just didn't have any desire to stay, or they couldn't run fast enough, or I couldn't run fast enough.
Laughing that the baby is the doctor, not a baby anymore.
No, he's not. He will always be the baby. I put him
Yeah.
on the bus, and it's just
Uh-huh.
that there's 13 years between us, so he's the baby.
And so your own children were brought up in the business. Are any of them looking to join in?
Yeah, I started bringing them when they were 3 weeks old, and my oldest is in college. He will be 20 in December, but I think he has a love of the garden center part, but he's pursuing a career in biology right now. So I want to give them all the option. They must get their education, and if they choose to come back, they can come back. If they don't want to, that's fine too. And then Skylar, he is 17. He'll be 18 in November, and he is in love with farming. He loves the field part of it, and he doesn't know what he wants to do. He's a senior this year, so he'll probably go to a local community college and still continue to work here. And then Oak is 14, and we're not sure what they want to do yet. But they're my husband's sidekick. They're here at the brewery every weekend. They do
Mm.
checkout, they run the kegs. They know all, a 14-year-old knowing all about beer is kind of funny. But there's always opportunity. I would be tickled pink if they came back, but it's really up to them.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, nice to know that there's probably a future there and that they're so involved right now.
and my kids would be the only kids because Darby and Melanie, they didn't have any children.
Hmm.
So time will tell, you know.
Hmm. And aside from being a family business and the farm and things, I know you were just doing cutting gardens for fundraising. Can you talk about those cut flowers a little bit?
Yes, I have a cut flower program out in the field. I grow like 20 different varieties of cut flowers, and I pick them Tuesday and Wednesday, and then I like to cool them in the walk-in box, and then we have them for sale Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I used to sell them for $10 a bunch, but once the pandemic hit, we realized, you know what, people need an uplifting thing. They need something. So we slashed the price to $5, and we decided that because the pandemic was so good to us that we need to give back more. So every weekend we do fundraisers with the flowers, and depending on how many flowers I can pick, it's between $500 and $1,000 each week that we give to local charities. A big one is a Smile Train that I like to give to because my middle son was born with cleft lip, cleft palate. We do a huge one for December. That's not the cut flowers, but that's a different. We grow a lot of greenery here, so we do a huge one for Children's Hospital because we spend a lot of time down there with him. And then this weekend we're doing Special Olympics because Oak was part of the unified tennis team this year, which you're paired up with a child from the Special Olympics, and it was just really. I had no idea, and we went to the. It was just really, really got me. So I'm like, okay, this weekend, our final weekend, we're going to give to them. So every weekend we just give the money back to a charity, and it's nice because it's good to give back. People have been so generous to us over the years and come out to support us that we just feel it's you need to give back. So that's why we do the cut flowers now.
Hmm. And that's so wonderful. And I know this Halloween weekend, as we're recording this, that this is the last weekend for the cut flowers benefit.
I can't believe we're already into November and we haven't had a frost yet, but the flowers are done. They're tuckered out.
Yeah, they're a little tired after this
They
point.
are. I'm tired too. I'm like, I don't want to pick them again.
Yeah, I was gonna say tired as we are, but that does turn us to indoor gardening, and when that
Yes.
heavy frost or real freeze actually hits us, many of us gardeners turn to our indoor gardens for solace and for greenery and to enjoy. And of course, there are some of us who are just indoor gardening all year long because that's the space we have to garden. So let's start sharing some houseplant favorites, some houseplant tips. And the first question I was going to ask you, Louisa, is if you're a baby houseplant parent, you're just starting into it and you don't know what you want to grow, what's the first thing I should be looking at? The sunlight in my windowsills or what could I grow?
The first thing you want to do is um, find out where in your house you want to put the plant. And it's always best if you have a sunny facing window, and then monitor the sunlight that you actually get. And then once you know that you can come here or go to your local garden center or plant store and really talk with the people who work there because that's our job. We want to give back. You know, we want to help you. We don't want to make you fail. And I always start people off with one of the easiest ones are like the ZZ plant, Sensiverias, also known as snake plant. Peperomias are super easy. Pathos and philodendron, which give you that awesome jungle look. and then you have to go, and it really is a one-on-one, you and the customer, to walk around and realize what they like, because different textures and stuff like that. But I do start them with the easy one, especially like spider plant, and just because you don't want to set them up for failure, you really need to
Mhm.
get all that information from them and how dedicated they are, because this is a living thing. And but we start you off right with the easy ones.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned pothos and spider plant because those are plants for the overwaterers like myself. Like I can't help giving plants too much water versus the other end of the spectrum, like Sansevieria and the ZZ plant might be like to be a little more on the dry side.
Oh yeah, they like the dry side. They're best for shade if you have like darker, low light areas and you're not,
Hmm.
put those in rooms that you don't frequent very often, and just in case you do forget. But they're super easy. There's a plan for everybody right now.
Yeah, and do you have tips for overwaterers like myself? Like
Hold it for water.
I was gonna say, you should put coffee filters or something in there to soak up the extra water.
Basically, I would suggest getting a notebook or and getting a schedule down. And because everybody's household is different. I could tell you that one plant doesn't need any water, but then you take it home and you put it underneath a heating vent. You really, really, really need to pay attention to these plants and where you put them and where you place them, because we set you up, but it does rely on you're the new owner, you're the new plant
Hmm.
mama or daddy. So you really need to look and pay attention until you find out what's going on. And we do suggest always buying plants that have pots that have a hole in them, if you are an overwater, and setting them like on so that they can drain out correctly and not sit in the water.
Hmm.
But basically you have to pay attention and really look and see, because these are living things.
Hmm. And that's a great point that, all of our plants in our household, depending on how dry you keep your house, how warm you keep it,
Yeah, everybody has a different, it's all different.
and if you're having your plants, say, at your office, your place of work, that you could be
Yes.
very drafty with doors opening and closing.
And you're not going to be there on the weekends, so you need to have plants that are hardier. But make a list, know what you want, where you're going to put it, what the thing is, and we will hook you up with a plant, because we want you. Because growing plants is amazing. It's very satisfying. They've actually done studies that it improves your mood. Especially in your office, it reduces fatigue. Um, it eases dry skin because it takes everything out, it releases moisture into the air. And stress, it's a great stress reducer. We do suggest getting some plants, because it really, and it's helped so many people during this pandemic. I cannot even stress how much people have they're actually calling them, I read, air purifying pets. They're no longer plants or foliage, they're your air purifying pets. So you need, it's just cool.
Yep. So it's like your green babies, your green
Yes.
petable, and some are more petable than others. Like I love African violets, like the whole Gesneriad family.
Oh, they're beautiful. Oh, have you seen those Russian African violets?
No, tell me about those.
Oh, they're like unusual colors. I think it's actually, if you Google Russian African violets, there's a person, we were going to invite them here right before the pandemic hit, and then we just couldn't do it anymore. And just look it up. It's just really cool. Just different
Mm.
colors, doubles, variegated foliage, just very, very cool.
Yeah, I have some double flowering and pink and streaked flowers, but in general, the foliage is, the straight green. So it'd be interesting to see variegated foliage on a
Yeah,
violet. And, aside from that, I also love the streptocarpus, and streptocarpus. And I was going to say another gesneriad that I love is they're just full of flowers all the time. They're always sending up flowers.
that is one of the trends of 2020 too, is to have flowering house plants. So we're going to have to get on that bandwagon and start looking, because most of the house plants we grow now are just for the foliage and textures and stuff like that. Because once you introduce those flowers, that's a whole nother ball game right there.
Hmm. And I was going to say that there's one, I guess the common name is like purple love plant. It has those purple fuzzy leaves, and
Oh yes, yes. Oh, I can't. Purple passion, yes, and it
Purple
has
passion.
it has the yellow flowers, but it stinks.
That's what I was gonna say is flowers aren't always the best thing on houseplants because
No, they
I
do
always snip
stink.
off the flowers because they're kind of like a orangey yellow marigold kinda looking thing.
They can get rather dirty too.
Mm,
I'll be honest, I'm not a flower gal. I am a foliage and texture, even in my own garden outside. Flowers come secondary because I think a plant needs to stand alone on its foliage and its texture because you don't have flowers all the time. So that's my two cents
mhm.
on that.
And and I'm always surprised too by some of the houseplants that do flower that I wasn't expecting a flower on, like calathea.
Yes, yes. I actually had a Jacina that recently. It's probably 10 years old and it just put up a bloom and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." But probably the easiest one that to grow that if you want flowers would be the Hoya. The Hoyas are
Mm.
beautiful, beautiful flowers, and they give you that elegant, drapey, shiny leaf, and it's pretty much gives you everything. Gives you the jungle vibe. There's different leaf textures. It's variegated, plain, but those flowers, man, those flowers are gorgeous.
And they're long lasting. They kinda have like that waxy look to them.
Yeah, yeah, they're beautiful and so exotic. I one actually we sell a lot of Hoyas and one bloomed in a hanging basket, and it just like made my week. I was just like, because you feel like a queen or a goddess when you get one of these things to bloom. You're like, I did something right. So even for a professional grower, the excitement is still there.
And I was gonna ask, for flowering houseplants, do you, recommend any fertilizer to add, or, how would you encourage that flowering?
Actually, they're each so varied. And with Google being right at everybody's fingertips, I would suggest researching because a lot of these plants are a big investment and we can't actually see the plant. We don't know when was the last time it was fertilized. So it's best just to check Google and stuff like that. I know when I get my plants, a lot of my plants, I will pot up and put it in a container and already fertilize it. So this will free you of like 6 months, so it's just an easy grab and go for my own personal customers. And I like Osmocote. I like the slow release fertilizer, so it doesn't, so it gets a little bit at a time instead of, because sometimes you can burn a plant with fertilizer, depending on the plant.
Mhm, that's a good point, that too much fertilizer is not a good thing.
And like we're going into fall right now, and some plants they go semi dormant in the wintertime and fall and they don't want fertilizer. So you really
Mhm,
have to research your plant and know when to fertilize it and when not. And like some plants, they prefer to be root bound, like the palms and the Dieffenbachias and the aglaonemas, they prefer to be root bound. And so you really need to research each plant. You can call us or you can tell us, but it's not a one size fits all.
yeah, it's such a wide world of plants out there, and
Yeah,
that does bring up the repotting question. So, I see so many indoor gardening influencers and experts saying to repot your plants every 2 to 3 years, but I'm thinking that's a little bit much for most house plants, and you were just saying that a few prefer to be pot bound, so
it does.
yeah.
They do. You really have to, it goes back to researching. I mean, if like sensitive areas, they'll let you know when they need to be repotted because they'll break your pot. They'll grow right out the
That's
roots.
a good indication, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. And you can pretty much tell, you know that you fertilized it and it's still getting yellow leaves and you have to water it like every 3 minutes. Yes, then it needs to be potted up. But I would only suggest going an inch or two. Two, you pot it up too big, and then if it's a plant that's prone to root rot, you can rot the roots because it doesn't dry fast enough. So, but if you stick with the easy ones like spider plant and ZZ plant, peperomias, you can't go wrong. Dieffenbachias, Sigoniums, which I think now has a new name. It starts with an N, NEP, something or like that. The butterfly plant, you know what I'm talking about? The Sigonium.
Mhm.
They're so easy to grow. It all depends. I'm going on a tangent. I'm sorry.
No problem. Well, I guess we can talk about individual categories of plants. So, for maybe the small succulents, the little collector succulents, When you pot that up, you'd want a different potting mix, right, than most of, say, the tropical plants.
Yeah, but we sell, you want the cactus mix, something that's with more perlite and vermiculite and stuff like that, just so that it drains easier. Keep those in a smaller size pot also because they're prone to root rot. And it, well, it depends on which ones. But a lot of those little tiny ones, you can grow them big, but they're so reasonably priced that I wouldn't put too much stress into it. I think we sell ours for $3.99. You know, the little minis that you set on your countertop. You know, just
Mhm.
enjoy them, and if they don't do good, you can toss them. It's not a big investment, but if you're investing money, like some of these plants are going for thousands of dollars.
Yeah, that does bring up the whole collector's craze for certain plants. What are your most in demand or rare plants that people come in and ask for?
What do they ask for? Everybody wants pink princess philodendron, and everybody wants Thai constellation, and you know the alba, the variegated monstera. I don't sell any of those. I am too frugal to do that on something that can die. And it is just a fad right now. I think houseplants should bring you joy. Houseplants should not make you nervous and on edge if you're going to keep it alive. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah, if I spent $1,000 on a monstera cutting, yeah, I would be staring at that 24/7.
Yeah, and I just refuse to get on board on that. I think houseplants should be fun. They should give you something in return. I just, plus I can't get them. If I'm being honest, I don't have any access to get them. They're so rare. Like there's still, like I go to my wholesaler, and there's still limits on how much I can buy. I can get 3 of this, 2 of that, and that's it because the demand has been so high. But I do have some unusuals every now and then, like different Hoyas. Are popular. Different aglaonemas are popular. Right now, the stuff on the poles are really popular. I can't even pronounce it. It starts with a D. See, I'm so old fashioned. I really didn't know much about houseplants until I jumped headfirst into it about when it started about a year ago, 2 years
Mm.
ago. I don't know. We've been in such a whirlwind these past year. It's
And
just
it's interesting what you say that the wholesaler is limiting what you can get. So that's
yeah.
definitely limiting the market, but there's only so much you can propagate because plants grow at a certain rate.
Yeah, I thought I could propagate my own, and it literally takes a year from taking a cutting on something to actually being saleable. It takes a year, and that's a lot of time to invest, especially on something, especially when you have a business and you have to calculate that you're watering it and caring for it and all the man hours that you have invested in this plant. That it's just cheaper just to buy it and just say we don't have these varieties, because if you want them, you can find them. Etsy and the internet will send you a leaf or two happily. But I guess I'm just too old fashioned. I can't get behind that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so for maybe a house plant that would make a great gift around the holidays, are there a few that you recommend?
Around the holidays, well, you could do a poinsettia, which is really nice. My husband is refusing to throw ours away from last year. They're still on the kitchen counter. I guess he friended them during working from home. They're all his now. But definitely a cyclamen because those are so beautiful, and they bloom until like Easter, and then they go semi-dormant. But it's that's another easy one. Um, Paperweights are really nice to give as a gift because they smell so nice, and definitely amaryllis bulbs.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, we have so many. They come out with so many neat ones, the doubles and the exotic colors and the different um, leaf shapes. Definitely give one of those. Those are beautiful.
Yeah, I love those.
Yeah. So any of those would be nice. Or if they're into cooking, you could give a topiary of rosemary or lavender. Lots of things that you can give around the holiday. Herbs are nice because you can keep them on your counter. They're not the traditional house plant that people think of, but you can grow them indoors also, and they make great gifts.
Hmm. And circling back to the cyclamen, I'm so glad that you mentioned the dormancy that they go into because so many
Yeah.
people get those beautiful cyclamen around the holiday or in the wintertime, and then they kind of die back in, I would say, around April or so inside your
Yeah,
house.
they're pretty
Yeah.
much done
Yeah,
by
and then they will spring back. You just don't,
yeah.
don't keep watering them or soaking them and rotting them, but just, cut back on the watering and then all of a sudden they'll leaf out again, usually
Mhm.
around I think September or so.
Yeah, start looking at it at the end of August and
Mhm.
start watering it again and giving it some fertilizer and putting it in more light because I normally suggest putting your cyclamen in a room that you don't go very often during the summertime just so that it can just do its thing so you don't have the urge to water it or something like that. And yeah, and then they'll spring right back up and then you get more for your money.
Mhm. Yeah, I had a cyclamen that I rescued from a dollar bench at a garden center, and it was pretty much dead looking. And
Oh yeah.
but it comes back every year. It's been 3 or 4 years and now it's reblooming right now. So
Oh
it's a really
nice.
rewarding plant.
Yeah, we'll start selling them shortly. They're budded right now, and
Mm.
yeah, they'll start here getting out on the tables for sale here shortly. So
And
they
then
are nice.
I was going to say another popular holiday plant is the Thanksgiving cactus or the Christmas
Oh
cactus.
yes, yes. Oh, those live for years. We have people who have their great grandmothers and cactus. That those are the type that get passed down from generation to generation. They're really nice, very popular too, and they've done a lot of I don't know, a lot of genetics on them because now they're coming in different colors and
Mhm.
really pretty.
Yeah, and there's an
Nice.
Easter form too, which is more just it's the
Yeah.
spring blooming form.
Yeah. And
And
cactus are really popular right now. So that would be a great suggestion for giving as a gift because cactus are very popular and they take the same care. Um,
mhm. And they're so easy to take. I was going to say for the Christmas cactus, they're so easy to take cuttings from and to propagate.
yeah. Yeah. No, I have tons of friends who give cuttings like every year of their great grandmother's cactus. And it's nice. It's a very nice sentimental gift because you do end up getting attached to these plants over years. I don't know what
Mhm.
I'm like my husband with the half dead poinsettia on our kitchen counter.
Yeah, maybe he can let that one go for a fresh
I'm
poinsettia this
hoping.
year.
I'm hoping. So we'll
And
see.
so you said you're a big fan of foliage and houseplants versus flowers. What are your favorites for like a variegated foliage look or a really jungle look to put
Uh,
together?
Dieffenbachias are awesome, so easy to care for, and they give you the huge leaf. They come in, I think Mary Ann is a variety, Tiki is a variety, and then you can get like I think it's the tri. No, that's an aglaonemia, but they're so easy, and they give you big leaves, big exotic, that jungle vibe that everybody's going for. Definitely go with a Dieffenbachia. Aglaonemas are another nice one. They're a little bit trickier. They like to actually be on the drier side, but they give you, and they come in the reds and the chartreuse, and they give you the wild colors. I love those. And philodendrons. Oh my gosh, don't get me started on philodendrons. The giganticum gives you that massive leaf. Hope is a nice one. It just looks like that somebody just dug it up in the jungle and put it in your living room. And I'm a sucker for the domino peace lily, which is beautiful. That's another one. The peace lily is nice if you're looking for a flowering plant. Super easy
Hmm.
to grow. And they have the domino and then they have the pinstripe. So they do come in different varieties if you're looking for something different. The philodendron is such a huge category that you could just go crazy in that one for days. And I
Hmm.
love bromeliads. Um, those are nice too because it's the texture and it's the shape that I like, and they're super easy too. So I don't think I have a favorite. I think I like them all, but for different reasons.
Yeah, and that's a true houseplant lover when you can't choose a favorite.
Yeah, like I don't have a favorite plant either. I just love them all.
And for the bromeliads, they do have that flower spike, but the rest of the year you get that beautiful foliage on them.
Yeah, that foliage. And that's one that can go outside and inside. It's not really prone to bugs too much, so it's super easy to keep that alive for years.
Hmm. And that does bring up some of the issues that you could have on houseplants. So, like either a fungal issue or little insects or white fly. What do you recommend, especially for white fly? That's a question I hear a lot.
Air circulation, put a fan in your room, cut back, watch your watering, make sure that there isn't any stagnant water in the bottom of your pots. But mostly air circulation. Maybe open your window once a week to let the air in and 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 to clean out, the stagnant air. But
Hmm.
other than that, yeah, some of them are prone, especially mealybugs. Mealybug is my nemesis. When something gets mealybug, because I don't use chemicals here, I just toss it. It's not worth trying to neem it. You can use neem oil or soapy water and stuff like that. But I'm just like, out of here. Get out of
Hmm.
here. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, mostly if you do have a problem, see if you can find something organic because the houseplants are really tender and they are susceptible to burn. Some of the plants they don't like the strong chemicals and it can have a negative effect on them. Anything organic.
Yeah, and I think if you start to see a yellowing leaf, people start to panic. So, what does that indicate to you usually when you see that, Louisa?
Uh, that could be one of so many things. It could just be that the leaf is done and it naturally turned yellow, cut it off. And my first thing would be cut it off and see if more leaves turn yellow. Because it could be lack of fertilizer, it could be overwatering, underwatering, or it could just be that, we shed our skin every day. The leaf is just done and it's going to put out new growth. You really just have to look and see. You really just have to alleviate all of the things until you can find what is actually causing it.
Hmm. So, don't panic.
No, no, don't panic. Don't panic. Cut off the leaf first, get rid of it. And sometimes, like if it's a palm and just a few leaves are getting some timber, you can just cut off the leaves on the palm. Don't cut off the whole stem. And just monitor it for a while and see if it's turning more. And if it is, always look and see if your plant has a strong smell to it. If it does, you can smell the rot. If you can smell it, it's an overwatering problem. And then let it dry out if that's the problem. Don't water it for a few days. Sometimes you have to actually repot it in new soil because the soil is so saturated that it would literally, by the time the soil dried out, your plant would be dead. So if it's truly saturated and you have like green fungus growing on the top, I would suggest repotting it in new potting soil and see if that is the problem. But yeah, you can smell that one.
So, follow your nose.
Follow your nose, and yeah, well,
And I was going to say one thing I've noticed, especially when you buy houseplants in the colder time of year, and you're bringing essentially what's a tropical, plant maybe from the equator, home during the winter time, and it gets exposed to those freezing temps for a few hours just on the car ride home or something, that you can immediately have a little bit of a leaf drop just from that change in situation going from your greenhouse home.
that is because you're taking it from one environment to another, so it takes a while for it to get acclimated. So
Hmm.
that should be, especially in the wintertime, not so much in the summertime, but definitely in
Yeah.
the wintertime, especially if you're taking it from a greenhouse that has been taking care of it every day. Yeah, but they normally bounce back. They'll bounce back.
Hmm.
Don't fret too much.
Yeah, so I would say if it initially is doing some drop of leaves or something when you bring it in, it could just be I would call it transplant shock, but it's more like moving shock from
Yeah.
going home. And do you have any tips for getting a tropical houseplant home in the wintertime and protecting it?
Well, they suggest getting more humidity into your house, and you can use grow lights. I'm not too familiar with the grow lights, so I don't have one that could suggest. But I know people put down the pebble trays with the water in it, and that helps with the humidity. You could get a humidifier. Basically, and most plants want to be drier in the wintertime because they are going dormant. They don't need the care that they had in the summertime. And if you have a problem, Google. I cannot stress that enough because you
No.
can ask Google at 11 o'clock at night. I'm not gonna answer you at 11 o'clock at night.
So if you have in the middle of the night craziness,
Yeah.
don't call Louisa, but yeah, but she'll be happy to talk to you at other times.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, and call your local garden center and we'll walk you through. But some stay with the easy plants. You can get a humidifier. You can get a grow lights, especially because the sun is strong, but you're not getting as much sun and especially at a different slant angle. So that
Mhm.
grow lights would be a good investment if you do have a lot of houseplants.
And so you and I are both pet parents and plant parents.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about having houseplants in a household with cats and dogs.
Oh, yes.
How do you protect them from each other?
Well, depending on your cat, if your cat is an eater or your dog is an eater, I say don't even add that to the mix. Do your don't get the toxic plants. There are lots of plants that are cat safe, like and dog safe, like spider plants and the parlor palm. Calatheas are good, peperomias, African violets, bromeliads, Venus flytraps, the prayer plant, which is really popular. There's tons of plants that are safe that you can pick from. And just don't even, because I would probably sacrifice a plant over my pet any day.
Hmm. And yeah, I would say African violets are a great choice because I have those in my
Yeah.
bedroom windowsill, and they are being used right now as cat pillows. So they just put they break off the flowers, but they love that texture for just
Oh,
laying down
yeah.
on, even
Or
though they're
you can
chewers.
get them their own plant. A lot of places are selling the cat grass
Hmm.
and just give them their own plant and keep, if you want them more, you're in love with a certain plant, put it in your bedroom or put it up high where they cannot get it. You just don't want that to happen. And I do take that very seriously. And sometimes I do forget which one is which. So somebody will ask me, is this dog safe? And I always want to give them 100% true answers. So they will see me Googling because I cannot remember all
Hmm.
of it. So,
And I was gonna say that a glass case, like a Wardian case or a
yes,
dome,
yes.
depending on your household. Obviously, if you have a large dog that would knock over the glass, that's not safe either.
Yeah. So, but stick with the safe ones and then venture out into the
Hmm.
other ones.
And that's a great idea to give them a decoy plant, a pet safe plant that they could chew a couple things on and leave the others alone.
Yeah, especially if you have like cat mint or something like that. They'll hone in on that in an instant
Hmm.
and they'll be too drugged to climb up to get your other stuff. Keep them drugged and they'll be fine.
You could always give them a few, dried catmint leaves to
Yeah,
roll
and
around in.
toys and stuff like that. I mean, my cats go every my husband came with cats. We have like 6 cats, so it's kinda hard to find a room that is not
Hmm.
ruled by a cat
Yeah, that's
or
there's
dog.
no such thing as cat proofing in my world.
No.
So, for some maybe challenging houseplants like orchids or that sort of thing, what do you think is the next level or the next trend coming in the houseplant world?
Actually, the next trend are slipper orchids,
Ah,
and
and slipper orchids they're usually generally shorter. They don't have that long, tall.
you know what? I love orchids. You know why? Once a week, okay, you're going to think I'm crazy. With my house plants, once a week, I even do it to the plants here. I think the plants miss the feeling of water on their leaves
Hmm.
because they're from jungles. I know, I'm weird. But once a week, that's what I said earlier, write down, have a schedule. I take my orchids and I give them a bath. I soak them in water, not very long, maybe a minute or two, and I wipe off their leaves. Yes, you do need to wipe off your leaves and dust your house plant so that they can continue to do their science thing for you and purify the air.
Mm-hmm.
You do need to dust them. But yeah, I give them a bath and then I put them back. And then in the summertime, I basically ignore them because I'm busy. And when the nights I get, the days are shorter now, so I'm home earlier so I can give them a bath. They're so easy to take care of. You can abuse them and when they bloom, you just wash them, give them their bath.
Nice. So the slipper orchids, they're definitely on the more expensive side.
They
Because
are.
yeah.
They are.
but they are so beautiful.
They are, but the regular orchids that you can get at Costco's, and you have to be a real orchid aficionado before you would spend. Like, have you ever gone to Homestead's Orchid Extravaganza? Oh,
Hmm.
all of the orchid societies get together. Oh, it's amazing. If you just go to Costco, or you can come here, just get an orchid, and it's just, they're beautiful and their flowers last so long. I think that's one that you definitely get your 18 to $30 back,
Oh
just in the
yes,
joy
yeah,
that you from getting them.
definitely. Yeah, and if you're super into orchids, definitely attend a Orchid Society meeting where
Oh yes.
people are giving tips and trading plants and having orchid auctions so you can get really crazy about them.
Oh yeah. And look into Homestead's orchid. I don't remember when it is. I think it's winter because
Hmm.
January, I think maybe.
Yeah, we'll look that up and try to share that.
Yeah, that is definitely a go-to. It's beautiful. And go to Longwood Gardens if you're going to venture into orchids in their orchid display.
And that's usually around February, March each year at Longwood Gardens in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, definitely go there.
Okay.
Beautiful.
So there's a couple other houseplants I was going to ask about that maybe you're not a big fan of. Like, how about ones that like have pointy, sharp tips, like crown of thorns or agave? How do you feel about those?
Don't ask me about agave. I have a whole house full of succulents. Succulents were really popular, but 5 years ago. I don't know time. I don't know what day it is. But it was a while ago. So I have a whole house full of succulents that I've been propagating for years. And I was just in there the other day cleaning the agaves, and like, why do I do this to myself? Go with a mangave. The ones that look like an agave, but it's a cross between a manfreda, I can't pronounce it, and an agave. You get the look of the big leaves, but no spikes.
Yeah, so much better for a household, especially if you have small children or you keep poking yourself when you're cleaning the plants. Yeah.
And those, like the bunny ear cactus, oh my gosh, those thorns just get on you. They're beautiful, but that's for a certain person.
Hmm.
And that person is not me.
Yeah, thorny plants can be an issue. And then the other side of the spectrum are the beautiful ferns. And that's one maybe we can wrap up with. We haven't talked a little bit about ferns. So, rabbit's foot ferns with that really fun,
Oh, they live for years too.
hmm.
I would stay away, if you're new to it, I would stay away with like the Boston ferns and the ones that drop their leaves in the wintertime, just because there's just such a mess. They're beautiful in the summertime out on your front porch where you don't see them, but stick with ones like staghorn ferns and all of the bird nest ferns and the rabbit foot, any that have the bigger leaves, those are good.
Yeah, I'm a big, big fan of those, especially if you have a low light windowsill
Yeah,
situation.
yeah,
They can take low light, they can take a little extra moisture.
they can. Maidenhair ferns are so pretty, but they do tend to be a more high maintenance. They do need their water. I actually put those in a dish here and bottom water them
Hmm.
just so that they can get enough. But you have to
Okay.
check it. Sometimes you have to dry them out.
And can you say that name again?
The maidenhair
Oh, the
ferns.
maidenhair ferns. Okay. Yeah, definitely. All
Yeah.
right. Well, any final houseplant advice?
Um, Definitely get on board with the houseplants. It's so fun, and they really start at all price points and all levels. Know how much commitment you want to go in and do it, because it is a fun. And then you can buy the accessories. You can buy the cute little pots that go with it, and the macrame hanging. It's really is houseplants right now are a huge crossover into decor and home decorating. So they're
Hmm.
being used as home decor. I mean, just look on Pinterest or any of those and you'll know. But yeah, definitely get into it. Know where you want to start. A lot of these people, they need to know their budgets.
Hmm.
And yeah, just go for it. Come and talk to your local garden center. If you are just starting out, I would suggest going to a garden center versus the big box stores, just because you're going to get the knowledge that comes with it. And we are here to help you. They're just turning they just want to turn over, you know. They're just clinging to the latest fad.
Exactly. Thank you, Louisa, because that personal service and help and that hand holding in the beginning is so essential.
It is because each plan is different and you want to succeed. We want our customers to succeed.
Great. And how
So,
can people contact you?
so follow us on Facebook or Instagram. It's Thanksgiving Farms. We're the one in Adamstown, Maryland. Definitely like us and follow us on that, because that's where I put all of the updates, all of our classes and stuff like that.
And
Yeah.
we'll get that up in the show notes so people can find you directly there, because I know you're pretty active and you're answering questions and interacting people.
Yes, and I do answer the questions at 11 o'clock at night because I have no life. The plants are in the garden center are my life. So,
Yep. Well, I can tell that. I can tell your love of plants, Louisa, and thank you so much for joining us.
oh, it was an honor. Thank you for inviting me.
Tatarian Aster Plant Profile. Tatarian Aster, Aster tataricus, is a tall perennial that is hardy to zones 3 to 9. The lavender-colored flowers bloom from September into October. This aster is not native to the United States. Instead, it originates in Asia, as the name indicates. It can reach 6 feet high or more, and is best planted at the back of a border or along a wall. It is very sturdy and does not normally require staking. Jindai is a dwarf cultivar from Japan that stays about 3 feet tall, and another short cultivar is Blue Lake, which has lighter blue flowers. This plant is not picky about soil types and grows best in full sun. It doesn't mind high heat and humidity. After a few years, it will spread to form a colony. It can easily be dug, divided, and shared in spring. Tatarian Aster is a pollinator favorite. It is also deer-resistant. It can suffer from fungal diseases that make the lower foliage unattractive, but that won't kill this tough plant. Tatarian Aster, you can grow that. What's new in the garden this week? Well, we've gotten a couple heavy rain days, so it's pretty soggy out there. And once it starts to dry out a bit, we're going to pull our tomatoes and peppers and put in our garlic. And back in my home garden, we'll be putting in our spring blooming bulbs. And speaking of bulbs, they're starting to go on sale at local garden centers. So check with your local independent garden centers. They're starting to mark them down as it's starting to get to be the end of the time for planting them. So check out the selection near you. And a couple of events I wanted to call your attention to. One is at Homestead Gardens in Davidsonville, Maryland. They are having their holiday preview party on Friday, November 5th from 6 to 9 p.m. And that's always a fun occasion and great way to jump off the holiday season. Also happening locally at Green Spring Gardens in Virginia. They are doing a garden talk on cacti and succulents. So if you didn't get enough discussion of houseplants and cacti and succulents in today's episode, check out that class. It's $12 per person, and you can register online through fairfaxcounty.gov, the Parks Division. Free Talk coming up is being sponsored by the Potomac Rose Society, and that's Sunday, November 21st from 2 to 4 p.m. Preparing your roses for winter, and then an open Ask Your Garden Questions of a Master Rosarian session. So that is taking place just virtually online, and you can sign up for free at the PotomacRose.org website under their events tab. And then a couple dates to save on your calendar and prepare for. Our magazine, Washington Gardener, is hosting our annual seed exchanges this winter on Saturday, January 29th at Brookside Gardens, and then Saturday, February 5th at Green Spring Gardens. So save those dates in the calendar. We'll be putting up registration information soon. And while you're preparing for that, you might start going through your seeds and collecting seeds from your plants outdoors and labeling them and packaging them in anticipation of both of those seed exchange events. Happy gardening! Thank you for listening to Garden DC. You can become a listener supporter for as little as 99 cents a month by going to anchor.fm/gardendc/support. Another way to support this podcast is to subscribe to our monthly digital publication, Washington Gardener Magazine. To do so, go to washingtongardener.com. Thank you. You can find Washington Gardener online at washingtongardener.com, on Twitter at WDC Gardener, on Instagram at WDC Gardener, and on Facebook.com at Washington Gardener Magazine.